Hello everybody, ciao a tutti, welcome to Art with Miss B. This is my fourth videos and today I'm very excited because we are going to talk about colors. Colors are one of the main and most important element of art, and as you know, because you watched already my previous video, if you didn't do so, I really highly recommend you to start from the first video. And when I discuss about me, about my channel, but also lines, and I say that I was going to do videos, three videos on each element of art. I just find that this is a very good method to use when you have to teach beginner, intermediate, and even more advanced students at the beginning of the school year when you want to review basically your foundations and your understandings of element of art. We're gonna have fun exploring all the elements, and today we are probably going to start to explore my favorite element of all, which is color. So I will switch the camera so you can see my hands and you can also hear my voice, because we're gonna kind of review together what is the color wheel that the young kids usually call rainbow. The rainbow is actually the color wheel, and we are going to study together, review exactly what it is, and then we're going to do a beautiful activity. I will add in the descriptions the material that you need. Since today I want to use a different media, which is watercolor, which is a wet media because it needs water. I really highly recommend you to use a very thick watercolor paper, mixed media paper, bristol paper, any type of a thick and heavy resistant paper that you have available. Just in case you want to practice with me and you do not have the right material, remember, this channel is to have fun and relax and explore the element and the principle of art and design. No stress at all. So you can grab the regular paper that you have available, and instead to use watercolors, you can use crayons, color a pencil, or whatever you have available to create the colors in the color wheel. So I'm gonna switch now the camera and we are starting the study and then the beautiful practice. Here we are. This is my pocket color wheel. It's something that you can find in some of the stores that sell art supplies. It's something that, it's very useful to have. It's small, so you can always bring it with you. And as you can see, I use it a lot. So it started to kind of show the signs of age, I think. So let's review together first before we start with the practice. And let's talk about the colors included in the color wheel. So we have three primary colors that my students in school know so well, which are red, as you can see, yellow, and blue. Primary colors are extremely important because thanks to the primary colors, so let's say red and yellow, we can make what we call secondary colors. So in this case, if you look over here, we have the yellow, the red. If we mix these two together, we have the orange. Of course, you see that depending on the quantity of one color, so red versus yellow, we can have a dark orange. If we have more yellow than red, we are going to have a light orange or yellow orange. If we mix a 50-50, so half and half, we're going to have orange, the secondary. Now let's turn this color wheel around and let's see what happens when we mix the yellow with the blue. If we mix a 50-50, so half and half, we are going to have green. If we have more yellow in the mixture than blue, we're going to have a yellow-green or lime green. If we have more blue than yellow, we're going to have a blue-green or turquoise. The same will happen when we mix together the blue and the red. If we have a 50-50, so like a balanced mixture, we're going to have a violet. If we have a little more blue than red, we're going to have a blue-violet, a little darker, more intense, also almost an indigo color. And then if we have a more red in the mixture than blue, we're going to have a red-violet, sometimes sort of like a closer to a grape color or magenta, right? Now, on the back of this color wheel, you still have the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. Actually, let me add something. The red, orange, light green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-violet are called the tertiary colors, right? Because they come third, basically. We have the primary first, mixing the primary, we get the secondary, and mixing together secondary and primary, we have the tertiary. On the back, I like this color wheel because it allows me to see the complementary colors. For example, I'm doing like the blue. You see that like the complementary lines. The complementary color of blue is the orange, which complement the blue. They support and they enhance each other, and they are opposite on the position on the color wheel. If we want to check what is the complementary color, for example, of red, we are going to turn it, and the complementary color of red is green. These two colors are opposite side on the color wheel, but they are complementary. They complement each other. They support and they enhance each other, and so on. Why it is important to know our colors, my friend? Because not only it's so fun, right, to play around with the color wheels and understand how can we create our colors, but I think that is extremely important because you need to know the colors, so when it's time for you to create your beautiful and original artworks, you really know, like you add the purpose, you make choices about color. You don't just grab the first color that you have available or just the color because you like it, but you started to think about it. What kind of colors can go together very well? What kind of colors instead don't look together very well? What is the meaning that I want to add to my piece? Mostly when we create something abstract, right, based on colors, like what is the meaning that I want to share with my piece? It's like I want to do a contrast in pieces, so what type of colors can I put together to contrast, and so on. So now we are going to create together the color wheel. Here you can see today I have many materials on my table, so I hope that I can position everything like nicely and properly. Let me make sure that it's all set. Perfect. So we are going to use a pencil, and I invite you to create a color wheel that doesn't have to look like the one that we just see, but it has to feature primary, secondary, and tertiary. Since I love flowers, for me, my color wheel is gonna be a flower. So if you want to pause the video, get the materials ready, these thick paper watercolors. You will need, of course, a cup with the water. You will need a brush to use the watercolor, and you will need a watercolors. Now, I have this beautiful palette that feature all the colors. You don't need that. If you have a small scholastic palette just with primary and secondary, is more than enough, because guess what? You will mix the color together to obtain the colors that you need, okay? So let's start from the center. The center is just gonna be something that I need in order to be able to set my colors, okay? So this is the center of my beautiful flowers. Now we are gonna start to set the petals, and we are going to respect the fact that we need exactly the same amount of petals that we need for all the colors, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So I'm gonna place, and as you can see, my friend, for my beginner student, just go very slow, trace a very organic line, very slow, and then you go back down to the circle. This is gonna be my petal, and this petal is gonna be my red. I'm going to set here, because I need to leave a space for secondary and tertiary, I'm going to set here my petal for yellow. The same, go slow, so you can actually control your hand. Very nice organic line. We don't want to have anything perfect. We add more interest if you don't have a perfect line. This is going to be my yellow. And finally, I'm going to do the space for my blue. And I will write blue. Now let's position the three petals for the secondary color. If we mix together red and yellow, we are gonna have our petals for orange, and we're gonna put the petal in the center, and you can make this petal a little smaller or as big as you did with the other petals. This is gonna be my orange. Now we're gonna place here the secondary petal for the green, because if we mix together yellow and blue, we have green. And here we are going to put the final petals for our secondary color, violet, because if we mix together blue and red, we are going to have violet. Now we need to fill these spaces with the tertiary color. And remember what we say together when we were looking at the pocket color wheels? If we mix a red and yellow, but we have more red, we need a petal for our red orange that you can also call dark orange. Now we need another petal for our light orange, because we know that if we have more yellow than red, we are gonna have a light orange. Now we need a beautiful, nice petal over here for our yellow green or lime green. Here, if we have more blue than yellow, we know that we're going to have a sort of a blue-green or turquoise. One of my favorite, by the way. And here we're going to have our petal for blue-violet, right? And finally for our red, violet, or magenta. Now we have this, look how beautiful is these flowers, and we are going to start to paint it together. So let's feel it like, let's make sure that you also have a piece of paper just in case your brush gets too wet or you need to wash it, rinse it and clean it. Few words about the watercolors. It's a water media, so you will have to find your own balance between the amount of water and the amount of color. So you will dip the brush in the water, and then you will scrub gently on your palette in order to obtain the color that you're looking for. And we're going to start with the red. Remember, friends, you need to understand by yourself through the practice which is the right amount of water that you really want, that you really need. I would really suggest don't make this watercolor too watery, because they will run and you won't be able to control the brush on the paper. And it is very important that you're able to control this brush and to control the color, because you want to try your best to stay inside the petal. For my young artist and my beginner, if an accident happened that your color runs a little bit outside, is not a big deal. Remember, we have just like a lucky accident. It is okay. You can still paint your watercolor. You will have some blending between some of the color, which it's really not a big deal. It is okay. And remember, friends, you can do this practice as many times as you want. If your watercolor, if your color wheel doesn't come exactly as you wanted at the first time, you can actually don't throw that away. Keep it. And then you will do it again, maybe this time changing a little bit the amount of water that you're going to use, changing the brush, maybe making the flower a little bigger, changing a little bit the shape of the petal to accommodate your needs. And then you can compare the second color wheels with the first one. And you will take notes, mental notes or real notes with a pencil on the back, to see what went better on the second, in the second practice, okay? Remember that we don't throw away the practice, but we work on them all the way and we complete it because first, we don't want to waste material and waste our time, and second, because it is important to build up knowledge. So now I rinse my brush, I tap it a little bit to make sure that it's clean, and I switch to my yellow. If your watercolor palette is a little dirty because you use it for other fun project, you can wash it and rinse it under the water. Okay, be gentle. Use a clean brush. And then you scrub gently on the palette under the running water, and the color palette, the palette of watercolor, will come back to life and will give you the beautiful bright color that we now need. So I really like to use watercolors, because according to the amount of water that you decide to use, you will be able to create many different type of artworks. It is a very flexible media and it dries really fast, which allows us, mostly, for example, when we are in school, then my time with the students is very limited, mostly with my younger student. It allows us to finish and complete the piece, let it dry, and maybe add the details that we want and we need to add. Now, after I do my yellow, I'm gonna rinse and tap the brush just to make sure that it's clean. And I'm gonna switch and I'm gonna do my blue. Let's find a nice blue. Remember, if you use too much water and you don't like scrub gently on that cake, this is how we call like the little uh, colors that you find inside your palette, you won't be able to see the colors as bright as you need and as saturated as you need. Saturated for my younger students means like intense, that there are no gaps. The color is not too much like a blended, too pale. We want a nice color because we are studying them. So we really need to be able to see them. Now, of course, if you use too little water, you would find it very difficult to paint just because your brush is too dry and is going to be like harsh on the paper, right? The practice should be something nice and natural and relaxing. So if you see that you're struggling in spreading the color, it means that you're probably using too little water. Okay, so this is also a way that you can understand, you can use to understand how much water you really need. Okay, the color wheels that you are creating doesn't have to look like mine. I give you example and I want to imagine that we are all together in the same room practicing together exactly as I do in school with my kid, but you are home, so you do you. You can watch the whole video, maybe speed it up a little bit, and then you can kind of grab to all the materials that you need and create your own color wheel. It doesn't have to be a flower. If you want to be, I don't know, an orange with the center and then all like the different slices. If you want to be a cake, for example, a multicolor cake, you do you. What it is important about this practice is that you understand the differences between primary, secondary, and tertiary color. So we are going to do other two practices about colors, which makes me very happy because I honestly think that colors, at least for me, as an artist, when I do my own stuff, like my own artwork, it's really probably the most important. Is the element that I use to connect with the subject of my painting, to express feelings, express like a convey meaning. So for me, it's really important. Now, I'm gonna rinse my brush, I'm gonna tap it so it is clean, and I'm going to move into orange. If you have a pure orange on your palette, you can use it. Otherwise, remember, we create orange mixing red and yellow. Take your time. As I always say, you have to practice at your own speed and at your own pace. If it's faster than mine, go for it. If it's slower, go for it. You can pause it, the video, you can play it again. And remember, when we paint, we also breathe, right? In and out from the nose. And it helps us to focus and to be present to this practice. Present with our mind, because we are focusing and we are thinking about nothing else than colors in this very moment as we study them and we understand them better and better. You see, a little bit of orange went inside the petal. It's not a big deal. It's still good. Now I rinse my brush and we are going to switch to our green because we're going to set the secondary color. I like to do this exercise in order because it's like that we are reviewing a second time the primary, the secondary, and then we will do the tertiary. I just feel that as a teacher, repetition, it is very important for students, and I love to repeat during the same practice and like repeat the concept, repeat the topics to make sure that everybody really understands it and everybody like memorize it somehow, okay? So this is why I'm going in this order with primary, secondary, and then we will have fun and create a tertiary color. Why you paint the color wheel with me and you're painting an individual color, it's like good for you to kind of look at the color that you're spreading on the paper and start to think about How does the color make you feel? Do you like it? It is a color that you would use it many, many times or not so often. It's a color that makes you feel calm or excited, happy, maybe a little moody or maybe a little sad. So let's start to also kind of find your own personal connection with the colors. Now I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna tap my brush on the paper and I'm going to look for my violet. Let's see if I could have a nice violet. Mixing a little bit of that. Yes, I think that this is just right. Half of the blue and half of the red. A balanced mixture. And you can start, as I was saying, to compare also the color and try to understand the nature. In the future exercises and practice that we will do together, we are going to analyze again the color wheels. We're gonna take we're gonna keep this paper next to us. So you have your, basically you build your own, you're building with me now your own color wheel. And that is something important that you really wanna keep close to you every time that you are about to create an artwork. Because when it's time for you to make a decision about what colors to use to complete your artwork, you have a color wheel next to you. You can look at it and make the decision according to the feeling that you want to express and the feeling that you want people that will look into your artworks to feel. So as I was saying, in the future practice, we're going to start to analyze the nature of this color. Like if this color are warm, are this color cold? What does that mean, right? What are some like neutral tones that we can use? And so on. Now it's the fun part. We need to really mix together more red than yellow to create our dark orange and see what happens. Now, mostly for my beginner students or for someone who's not very like an expert in color wheel, it might happen that you don't have exactly the tones that you want. Maybe this one is going to be too dark compared to what you want. It is perfectly okay. As I say, we are just learning together, so there is like no need to feel disappointed. Actually, every practice is a little brick that we add to our foundation, the foundation of the portfolio that we are building together. So once again, just in case something goes wrong or not exactly as you expected or as you wanted, make sure that you don't throw away the practice. You do another one, changing and making some change according to your observation, and then you can compare the two practices, and you will keep as a reference the practice that is more successful. You can make adjustments also while you do this practice, as I'm doing, for example. I just feel that at the beginning was a little too dark, so I'm adding a little bit more of yellow in my mixture to make sure that it's still darker than this orange, but not as dark as the red. Still a little darker, but we'll see what happened here. I'm gonna put a little bit more of orange, and that's it. Now I'm gonna rinse my brush, and we need a very, very, very light orange. So I'm gonna really mix my red with a lot of yellow and see what happens. Too orange, I need more yellow to make it lighter, more yellow. I think we are close to what I wanted to. Okay. For example, now that I'm painting all of this beautiful, bright, dark and light orange next to the yellow and the red, I feel very, very, very warm and happy and energized, just because it's the nature of these colors that we call warm colors. Spread it. Nice. Let's rinse this brush. My goodness, my water is becoming very, very colorful. I bet that yours is doing the same. And now we need to mix yellow and green, making sure that is the green that we have is lighter than this, but doesn't feature only yellow. So let's see. Take your time, do your mixture, and remember that you can always make adjustment. Let's see. I think that this is a good one. This color also make me feel so happy. I think that my favorite colors are definitely on the cold side of the palette, starting probably from this lime green all the way to the blue. I in particular am not a violet or purple person, but I know that many of my students, they love violet, red violet. I always ask about favorite colors and how do this color makes you feel. I just feel that creating a personal relationship and connection with the color, it's really important. Now let's try for the blue green. So we're gonna mix the green and the blue in our palette and see what happens. Okay. A little bit of green and a little bit of blue. Yes, beautiful. Maybe I want just a little bit of blue, a little bit more, to make it a little more intense. So, and remember, if by accident your colors are a little like a wet to wet and they run into each other, it's really not a big deal. It's actually very beautiful. I'm now doing it this way just because I want to make sure that I can show you all the colors like precisely the way that they are featuring the color wheels. But honestly, mostly when we use watercolor, and we might use them, we will use them again for future project. I love when we let them really blend and run on the paper and see what happens. So we kind of let the water do its magic. Now I'm just using a little more color than water just because I want to have a stronger control of what I'm doing. Beautiful. Now we rinse. Good job, guys. Look at that. We are almost done, and I really love this color wheel. So blue violet. Let's mix the violet with the blue and see what happens. It should be pretty intense, and definitely darker than this. Definitely perfect. Also, this is mostly for my beginner students or young artists. If you see that the paper is getting a little too wet, the color is not exactly what you want, don't overwork it, which means don't work immediately over and over because you're gonna break the paper and you're gonna mess it up more. Just like let it set, let it dry a second, and then you go over once the paper is dry and you can fix the color, right? So we have some fixing that we can do while the paper is still wet, but it has to be like you need to be able to see that your paper is still flat, is not starting like to create waves or to bend, because that is the signal that the paper is giving you that it's a little too wet and it might break. Okay, so make sure that art is, we need to be patient, and sometimes not everything will happen in one single sessions or exactly as we wanted. We need to be patient and make sure that we give time, okay, to the project just to settle on the paper, and in case you need to do some fixing, you will do some fixing. And now we are going to use the red and mix it to the violet and see what happens, because we want a sort of a red, violet, or magenta. Let's see if this one is good. I think it's good. Let's see, a little bit more water. My brush was getting a little too dry and it was getting a little tricky for me to paint. I think that just, just looking at this beautiful color wheel that we created together, I just feel so happy and so fulfilled. And I think that my whole day is gonna go better just because I got the opportunity to practice some art with you, which is something that makes me feel very happy. This is why I'm so passionate about teaching and I love my job so much. I just feel that sharing with a group of students, no matter the age, the level, and the location, is just like, it's such a beautiful feeling. And I thank you so much for following and subscribing and do this practice with me and trust me as your teacher and your guidance. Now, our color wheel is all done and it looks so beautiful, and I really like the fact that with watercolor we can see some of the strokes in some color more than another. A little bit of water settling here is just so beautiful because it is the nature of the watercolor itself. For the center, I invite you to be creative. You can leave it white, you can paint in black. We're gonna discuss later in the future the white and the black tones. Like black is all the colors together, white is absence of colors. You can paint it with multiple color. You can actually do stripes, recreating like each stripe is gonna be a primary, secondary, tertiary. You can do dots, you can really do whatever. I'm gonna do maybe some dots. I'm gonna use I have here this nice brown. I'm gonna just kind of do it a little dot, more dots, I would say, like strokes, and fulfill it like I would do like in a real, more realistic flower. I wish a flower like this would exist. That would be so awesome, wouldn't it? There you go. And then I'm gonna add maybe a darker one. Just to make it more interesting. I love to, and you will learn with me if you probably some of you know already, that mixing lighter and darker tones of the same color really gives that idea of value, which we will discuss in the future. And value makes everything looks much like better, gives interest, movement to our pieces. Final touches to my beautiful flowers, and it's all done. So put the brush in the water and make sure to clean all of your supplies if you are a young student and artist. And if you are one of my students in school, my former students, you know that I'm very picky about cleaning. So make sure that you wash your brush, you put everything away, you let the watercolor palette dry, and then you close it and you put it away. Look how beautiful is this. And now I'm gonna switch the cameras for our goodbyes. I hope you enjoyed this practice. I really loved it. Okay guys, here is our beautiful color wheel. As I said during the practice, you don't have to do the flower as I did. I just love flowers, and I think the flowers and their shape allowed us to really recreate a beautiful and very precise color wheel. Remember that we know now what are the three primary colors, so red, yellow, and blue. What are the three secondary colors, right? Orange, violet, and green, and these in between are the tertiary colors, which we make mixing the primary with the secondary. So dark orange, light orange, yellow green, blue violet, and red violet. And this is our beautiful color wheel. And remember what I always say, don't put the paper don't lose this paper, save it in your folders. If you didn't make a folder yet, I really encourage you or your parents, if they are helping you in this process, to create a folder, plastic folder, paper folders, whatever you have available and is good to you. If you have a big piece of construction paper, you can fold it in a half and you can place everything. So we have all of our practice. This was the first little practice that I show at the end of my first video about lines. This is the second practice that we did in the second video together, learning about lines and two different coloring techniques, pencils and markers. And this was the final very challenging work about lines when we use many different type of lines that we learned in the first and second video to create this landscape, unrealistic landscape, and to use these lines and patterns to color. Finally, today, our first video about colors, we have these color wheels, and now I will place it with the rest of the paper inside the folder because we are building a portfolio that is something that you can always look back if you need, like that when you take notes on the journal. Basically is the way that we take notes in art, and it is very important that you're building it correctly. I hope you enjoy this practice. Thank you so much. Make sure that you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you didn't do so. It's Art with Miss B, of course, and I really highly encourage you to watch for the first video, second, third, and fourth, so you build the skills in the same order that I'm sharing the materials with you. And I see you all soon. Ciao a tutti. Bye.